Hi, it's Nydia. Oh boy, I just wanted to take a moment to share with you an experience that I had with the Pharm Table last week. Um, I'll try to keep it short, but there's so much to share, I don't even know where to start. Elizabeth Johnson of Chef Elizabeth Johnson of the Pharm Table uh, created a most amazing opportunity for those of us who want to move closer to wholeness with an Ayurvedic approach to mindful eating. I don't know where those came from. And she developed a program along with an Ayurvedic practitioner, Michelle Santos. And these two ladies are doing some amazing stuff. Anyway, you might have heard me talk about it last week. The flagship, event was the opening, and there's going to be 4 offerings, so there's 3 more, and that's why I'm talking about it, because I think that if there's anybody out there who might be interested, you have to consider joining the next cohort, which is in October. There's one in October, November, and December at the new moon. And don't ask me the dates. I don't know. But go to pharmtable.com and you'll see it underneath the Immersive Cleanse opportunity. So, but yeah, we started the evening the week before. We were to be mindful of limiting caffeine and alcohol. We were preparing for a cleanse, and I don't know, what do you think about when you think about a cleanse, not eating grapefruit, this or that, no, this is not that. This is a whole mind, body, spirit, well-being opportunity. So we show up on Monday night there at Pharm Table, which is always amazing. And we were there in community with other like-minded beings who were also interested in improving their long-term well-being. This is right up my alley. I am in training for my next decade. I mean, this is so I'm alongside others, meeting new friends, connecting with friends that I've known, professional peers, and just watching Elizabeth as she's doing her thing. She's a whirlwind and a Wonder Woman, an amazing chef and kind-hearted person. We are in community with one another, and we then experience a sound bath. It was so fun, music, flute, singing bowls, and we just relaxed. Some people were lying down. We were sitting in the restaurant, and it's really a private event. I mean, it's us. We're there, and there's her team. It's pretty fabulous. And then we come back to our table, which is just as beautiful in the round. I'm going to try to include some pictures here, because this is just something you've got to see. But visualize a large table, and just, oh my gosh, it's decorated in the center with citrus leaves and locally sourced plants and things and foods, and anyway, it was really neat. We sit, we get introduced to the process and what we're going to experience, and to each other, one another, and to Elizabeth and Michelle, and to our speaker. We had a speaker just this past Monday that we saw via live stream, and then we are introduced to the foods. And the foods, the team brings around 4 courses, something like that. It was, well, if you've ever been to Pharm Table, it's just always delicious, always nutritious, always satisfying to the soul, and the flavors and the textures. And in this particular program, that Chef Elizabeth did, she created an Ayurvedic approach to the foods that we were having, and that had an what she called, and I love this, and this term, endemic. It was an endemic approach to the foods that she was sourcing that were either local or from, meaning endemic, meaning they're from this area, to help to sustain those of us who grew up in Texas, who, I am of Mexican origin, of, my ancestors, my grandparents, in further South Texas, and our cousins and our, great grandparents and everybody, we were from Mexico, because this was Mexico before it became Texas, and so we're Mexican in origin, we're Indian, we are indigenous to this area, me a little further south. And so, having an Ayurvedic approach to mindful awareness and eating within this cleanse that is meeting my own roots, my own background, the food being most, appropriate to what I tolerate and sustains me, or, pepitas, the squash, the seeds, the pumpkin seeds, and celebrating the foods, the pumpkin and or squash, the corn, the beans, these are things that are of, sustainable to me, and I've always struggled with traditional Ayurveda and Ayurvedic eating approaches because they are from, India, and there's a heavier starch with the rice and stuff, and my body doesn't tolerate too many starches, too much, my blood sugar just doesn't tolerate it, and it just depletes me. And so I always respected and really appreciated the Ayurvedic whole, the ancient science of yoga and the approach to looking at a person's, constitution and things that, foods and things that would be more appropriate for a person, and depending on the seasons, I just struggled. And so Chef Elizabeth did an amazing job at bringing a process of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic eating approach to meet my individual needs as a person who lives here in South Texas, in Central Texas, and I can't say enough about it. The foods, oh my gosh, we had a quinoa and nixtamal tamale that was wrapped in hoja santa. Hoja santa, if you look over here, I have hoja santa back in that garden right over there. You see that giant leaf? Well, that is also known as the root beer plant, and it is from Mexico. But it grows, it grows here, and it's just delicious, and it's so nutritious, and so that tamal was wrapped in hoja santa, and then you had the pepitas, the little, pumpkin seeds, and then there's these sauces and agaritas, and I can't even, it was just so delicious. And so our approach that evening was to, really pay attention, to bring our awareness into not just eating food, to get on, to then function, but to actually sit down and nourish your whole self, your whole mind, body, and spirit, your senses. We talked about the nervous system, and I'm all about the nervous system and how we are approaching, eating as a ritual, eating as something that's honorable, and so that evening we had our meal, and we had community, and we had just a wonderful time. And by the end of that meal and that evening, then we were presented with two large, big old handled bags. They had to double bag them because they were so full of foods that we were then to take home with us to continue our Ayurvedic endemic approach to Ayurvedic eating, mindful eating cleanse that would happen then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we had 3 meals a day for those 3 days. 9 meals were in those bags, along with condiments and along with, juices, and, as part of the cleanse, and, horchata. Oh my gosh, her horchata is just so delicious, and all of this is vegetarian. It's just so light, but yet so nutritiously dense, so filling and satisfying. And then, we have a platform as a team, where we will be introduced, to Elizabeth and the process and how to reheat the foods mindfully, and we received. Oh gosh, what are they? I don't even remember the name of them. There's so many things that I'm learning right now, but much of the approach is to help the digestion and elimination during this cleanse. It's not about not eating. It's not about sacrificing. It's about helping your whole system digest and eliminate. And when we think of digest, take in the nutrients, which is a vital part of why we eat. It's not just about, oh, it tastes good, so let me just eat it real fast and not think about it. It's we are eating foods, and if we're fortunate, we look at the foods and then we smell the food, and bring in that sense through our sensory organs, and we taste the food, and is it salty, is it sweet, is it pungent, is it astringent, is it, and then we crunch the texture, and we actually chew, and we with awareness, and so that's what we're mandated, within this practice, is to prepare your body with some herbs to start the digestion process, to have teas that are also going to help with detox and digestion, and then we're going to prepare our meal, heating it up. It's not hard. It's we're not microwaving. We are actually putting things in a saucepan, and Elizabeth has done a great job, and the videos that show you how to do this. And then, this is a commitment. It's the coolest thing, and being aware of then distraction, so that when you have your meal and you place it, you then, look at it and you smell it and you take a bite and then you chew, and you're aware, you're paying attention, you're present. It is completely right up my alley, because it is what I teach people with the therapeutic yoga and the breath-centered therapeutic yoga approach. It's about mindful awareness. It's about paying attention. And this is just another avenue, and it completely melds in so appropriately, that it just takes us to a higher level, and then when we prepare our foods, we've got those 3 days, and we're communicating with each other on a platform online to kind of keep each other going and to check in and getting other information. And then she prepares a speaker for us. And wow, Claudia, what is your last name? She was our speaker on Monday, and she was telling us all about, South Texas, and she's just a historian, and she's an amazing, amazing human, and I'm so happy that I got to meet her, and I can't wait to know her more. And then the people that I met, during the process and at the dinner and communicating online. And so I will tell you that if you are in any way interested, you need to go to pharmtable.com, and you need to go and check out their Ayurvedic cleanse or masterclass or something. Go look at that under the special events, and do consider joining the next cohort, either in October or November or December. I am actually acting as a collaborator, and some of my content is actually available to those who are doing the programs, because it is, again, we are sisters, soul sisters, when it comes to our approaches. And Elizabeth does it with food, and I do it with breath and movement, and so I think that it would be very well worth your time and your effort and your resources too. When you look at the website and you see the cost of the program, which is $400, you might get a little sticker shock. And I'm going to be honest, I've heard some feedback from individuals, and I want to share with you, that the value of this program is upwards of $1,500. I mean, with the resources, in my professional opinion, it's just, there is so much happening, so much that you're going to be able to benefit from, and it's definitely worth your time, your effort, your commitment, because this is not just, oh, let me just kind of drink this and then go on my way. No, this is a practice, an actual breath-centered awareness practice that you're going to do with food and your nutrition and understanding. How do you actually, we don't just eat, but how do you nourish yourself? How do you come into community and commune with your own self and your every cell in your body, and use your senses and slow down, So we are encouraged to detox from, social media, the stuff, and pay attention when we're eating, not reading or, scanning the internet while we're eating, but actually to be present with your meal. And I'm not going to lie, some of the habits, it's like, oh, well, let me just get this email while I'm, doing this, or, oh, let me just grab a bite because I've got to go do this. And one of my takeaways was, and those of you who know me know that I have been attempting to practice what I preach for decades. And I moved my studio. I closed down the big studio, and I made my work smaller, and I moved my studio onto the Hasina Darby, the property here, and everything's smaller, but yet, I had goals of how do I continue to spread the word about training for your next decade, and about, the only thing you have to do is breathe, therapeutic yoga, this melding of, 45 years of physical therapy, fitness, and yoga. How do I do that? And I can't do that if I'm not at my optimal functioning state, and optimizing my nutrition. It's not about taking some pill. It's not about, the fancy fat diet that's going on. It's about paying attention and then choosing the foods that are most honorable to me, and being present and letting my cells get fed. Think about it. What you feed yourself matters. Who you surround yourself with feeding that type of energy matters, and how you approach your well-being for the long term, that matters. So I can't say enough about the program. I hope that you will consider looking at pharmtable.com for their Ayurvedic cleanse, and I hope that if you have any interest in helping yourself, seriously help yourself, look at foods and your approach to eating in a new light, then you might consider doing this program. And this is not a paid infomercial. This is my commitment to well-being, and to how I am committed to helping others find things that help them be better. And this is, gosh, I feel great. And so I'm looking forward to hearing that you guys might be in on that, and so, yeah, that's my story. Thanks for listening. Peace.